Maybe we'll listen to that Penny Kelly's video a little bit while we're waiting for the live stream to come up. Waiting for people to come.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a Pentacles card where this guy is leaning on his rake or a shovel or whatever, and he's looking at this bush with all these pentacles hung on it. And it's the card of asking yourself, is this worth it? And I thought, oh, so people are not sure that it's worth it. And then it stayed cooled off into June and maybe even through June. Some cryptos were still doing okay. The biggies, the main ones. Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Litecoin, Theta, some of those. And by July, everybody was back to holding on for dear life again and waiting for the situation to improve, which it was doing, but it was much slower than it usually does. And July was really a difficult month for people, not just because their crypto was worth less, but because there was so much crap happening in the society. So you know, people waiting, and so the carrot of, you know, that's held out in front of your nose, you know, can I change my life? Do I dare change my life? I was afraid that a lot of people were just going to keep chasing the carrot, and they weren't realizing that, yeah, I can change my life now. Let's do it now, etc. And so they're going to miss the opportunity. So in the beginning of July, the cryptos went up a little bit, but they didn't go up as much as I wanted them to. Okay. And there was this awareness, and so that's where I got into, like, what's driving this? That was where I had that, so by digging underneath, what I saw was that people were becoming aware in a lot of places that the crypto effort was really a cabal thing.
Right.
And now they were like, I don't know if I want to do that or be part of that. Can I trust that? Or they didn't want to do anything that would support the cabal. And so there was this uproar. So I wrote it like this. There was an undercurrent of danger because people were doing this sort of, oh, wait a minute, this? What are we walking into? What is this about, etc.? And it didn't last very long, but it was enough for that whole question to sink into people's psyche, and then that came up later. But in August, it looked like cryptos went up again, and I thought, okay. But there was the attitude. The reason it went up was people's attitude was sort of like a, you know, damn it, this is our world, this is my money, this is my government, this is my nation, this is my, and we're running it the way we want, and we're not having anything to do with you, cabal. And so there was this attitude of, I'm investing in more cryptos because, damn it, I want to, because I want to have charge of this. So then there's some more that came up with the cabal right after that. I thought, okay, the undercurrent of danger that I saw in September was that a lot of cash had disappeared. It was off the table. It was all in cryptos. And I thought, oh wow, let's see where this goes. If we don't have any cash and they crash the crypto market, we're up the creek without a paddle. Schitt's Creek, as my mother would call it. No.
That's a good episode on TBC. There's a good, there's a show called Schitt's Creek.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Okay, so then I thought, let me look at the Cabal and let me see what's actually happening there with them. And I was really surprised. Okay, so the cryptos were the devil child of the Cabal. That they set that up, they started it, they did all the background stuff to make it seem like there was something happening that was out of their control, and it wasn't. They did plan to have total control over the people, and the plan was not going well. And so I looked at that, I thought, oh my, the Cabal was in this kind of they were struggling because what they saw was that cryptos were being taken over by the very people that they were originally wanted to control, and instead those people were controlling the crypto. And they were just so distressed over that. They were freaking out, absolutely freaking out, and they were blaming various people within the Cabal families, and they were getting some vengeance too, I would add. And they were, but everybody was using the same excuse. Well, it's not working because we had to speed up our plan. We didn't have enough time to carry out our 16-year plan. We needed another 8 years, and they don't have it. And so, and so they do not think that they can pull it off. And that was a big shock for me. And so at the same time that I was looking at this, I'm watching the drivers moving the population forward, and the attitude of most people was, what is decentralized crypto and what is centralized crypto? And they were only interested in the decentralized crypto. The centralized was controlled by the banks, and the banks were going all out trying to get people to invest in their cryptos, turn their money in for those cryptos.
July and
so
August.
There was this absolutely frantic craziness happening between, say, August, September, October. And the Cabal, they had a second thing that they were afraid of, and it was that people were waking up and realizing that the Cabal was working through the big corporations, and people were beginning to boycott corporations and various organizations, and it was just not going well for the Cabal at all. And so, they were afraid more people were going to figure out other ways that would hurt them financially. And people were figuring out other ways. And so there was this big propaganda campaign. Look, we can do cryptos and it's so easy and smooth. Just get out your Google Pay or get out your, some other crypto, and Visa or Master. It's just like using Visa or MasterCard. We got it handled, folks. And so I was like, oh, wow. So that was the Cabal. They really, they're trying to get, the last thing I saw was that they were trying to get that infrastructure bill passed. And it hadn't passed, I don't think, at the time that I first started looking. But most of that was money for them. It was nothing to do with infrastructure. They have no intention of improving our infrastructure. So it was like, oh my gosh. So that was the crypto Cabal struggle and conundrum that's happening between now and October. So let's go back to the IRS question.
Hold on, I want to know, I won't forget it. Let's go back to the crypto here for a second. I love this because you and I have talked about this. I think it was in the November or maybe December show where we would eventually have this war to waking up humanity to the difference between the centralized and the decentralized coin, the central bank currency. And we had opined that, of course, these banks would come out, and now they're all out, saying, hey, us, we're safe, we're the custodians of your Litecoin, use our Visa card, blah, blah, blah. And unknowing people who are not yet into crypto would say, oh, okay, that's the new system, I trust the banks, whatever. So my question is to you then, and I always ask, like, well, what's going to be that instigator event where people educate themselves between the two and are not fooled by that? So did you, what happens? Why do people start paying attention between the centralized and decentralized coin? And why does the train go off the track here for the Cabal trying to bring people into their new version of fiat money into the digital currency world?
Right. You know what? It's just this slow creeping move. There was no big incidents. There were news out here and there, but it was just this slow thing. And the Cabal kept looking for who's to blame, how's this happening? They couldn't find one.
Right.
And I thought, there's no way they're going to stop that. People are sharing, they're telling, they're talking, they're understanding. There's too many people that are too awake. And they're just, they just don't have a leg to stand on. And the infrastructure bill, the other thing, something goes wrong with the infrastructure bill. I don't know what happens. It looks like it doesn't ever happen. So I'm watching to see what happens with that. But I was delighted to see that it just was this slow creeping knowledge, past individual to individual, and no amount of censorship and no amount of demonetizing.
Everyone that wakes up is one less.
They can't stop it.
Actually, it probably makes it worse. Right? When people are duped so many times, they're like, yeah, F you, we're not listening to you anymore, and you can delete it all you want, we're still not going to listen to CNN or...
Yep. People don't want to hear about some of the injectable stuff, and they don't want to, they're tired, out of their mind about the corona thing, but they're interested in their money.
They'll pay attention there. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I think that's good news because, again, I've had these conversations with Dick Allgaier and Bix Weir, and both of those guys had a very different view. Bix was more of the white hats, good side, crypto's good for humanity, and Dick was more like, I don't know, it's the Cabal, they have a lot of control, and they might actually go to more control. And so I was kind of like between them. I'm like, well, I agree the Cabal wants to have more control, and I can see that's what their plan is. But I always thought that at some point the universe would intervene, whether it's consciousness that would intervene, and through all of this chaos, humans would say, aha, got you, and turn the tables. And of course, maybe that was optimistic of me, but you see, it appears that your look-see here is leaning my way, so I'm kind of happy about that. And I'm happy for the folks who are out there too, who are looking at all of this, and who've made these choices over the last couple of years, hard choices, to go maybe against what their family was saying, their friends were saying, and put money into crypto. And now they see maybe at least light at the end of the tunnel, and some benefit being, first adopter or first arriver on the scene, you always get that first benefit. So good on you for you guys who are already there here in crypto and gold and silver. We'll get into the gold and silver in a second here. Okay, thank you so much for Michael, Shauna, Eugenia of that name, Ilka, thank you so much. And Keys, did we do that one? Yes, we did. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. So now, let's go back to that IRS question. A few people asked me, don't forget to go back to your question, please. So yes, okay. IRS, what's happening with those guys?
Okay, so, the IRS, this is interesting because I just saw this week. Some people this year do not file, but by the time I got to next year, there was the majority did not file. And it was that same kind of creeping sort of, they're not part of the federal government. Why are we paying them taxes? So that was a big chunk of it. Another big chunk was, we don't like what you're doing. We're not giving you our money for you to do that with it. And so people just stopped. And I have thought, even though the robes said there would come a day when people would not file their taxes anymore, my thought was, it ain't no way that's ever going to happen. Well, what I was seeing just this week was, yes, there is. It's coming. And what starts this year reaches a huge majority, and then just after that just falls out altogether. The entire government is struggling, and it shrinks dramatically over the next 2 years, dramatically. And so the idea, what I was seeing, we had a class just this weekend, and I don't know if I still have their. So anyway, we looked ahead, and almost there were like 31, 32 people in the class, and almost to a person, they all saw the same thing, that Trump may not return. By God, he's directing things from the sidelines, left and right, and there comes a point where he's disappointed. And I had seen something similar, like something goes wrong there. I don't know what exactly. And he's okay, but something goes wrong. And I heard that same thing coming back from this group. We did a little exercise, and so I'm pretty sure that what I see, which is the shrinkage of government tremendously, the isolation of the U.S. for a period of time, because we're trying to get our bricks in a pile, kind of thing. And then there's this neck and neck sort of not a struggle, but race would be a better thing, kind of a friendly race, to restore government or to develop new forms of governance. And I have to say, it looks like it's new forms of governance that wins out, and that there are people in very high places who are pushing for that. The system we have has proven to be too easy to manipulate.
Time and time again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know.
Okay, well, I think we'll get going here. I highly recommend Penny Kelly. She's a brilliant lady. She's started out as an engineer with Chrysler, had this Kundalini experience way back when, and now she's a naturopathic doctor, and she's a psychic and a brilliant lady. She's got a YouTube channel. Very, very interesting material on her YouTube channel. And also Jean-Claude Beyond Mystic. I mean, he's got some interesting people he interviews. She's only one of them. He also interviews. He's got a lot of interesting interviews. You got to take it for, some of it you might be interested in, some you may not. But anyways, we're going to get going here, and I am going to get started. That video right there is on Beyond Mystics. That's a YouTube channel, and I would recommend you ought to watch the whole thing. It's really an interesting video. That's why I'm playing it, because it's very interesting. If you're having trouble listening to it and find it of interest, then go to YouTube and listen to it. It's on Beyond Mystic YouTube channel with Jean-Claude. He's a guy in Quebec. And anyways, I would recommend you ought to listen to that. It's very interesting. She's got some interesting ideas on current events. They have to obviously be careful about the censorship. So the presentation this afternoon is going to be the Constitution, the best protection. And without a doubt, there was some people asking what to do. Well, I can tell you that the best, anytime you're dealing with government at any level, the Constitution is always your best protection, but you got to understand what it does and how it protects you. And the federal Constitution is the one that is the best protection. All the state constitutions are territorial. We'll go through that in this presentation. So I guess we'll just get going here. First of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I'm in a lawyer. No, I'm in a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provide references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything, and I'm open to any ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If people don't know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana-growing, whiskey-drinking, tax-evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the pigs. And that's true. Marijuana-growing, George Washington was a hemp farmer? That's correct. Do your research. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. And if you call me a conspiracy theorist, then I don't trust you. Government is not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. And if there's anything that can be said about Donald Trump, it's that during his presidency, there was a lot of things that came to light that might not have come to light if it wasn't for him being in there. Whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. An informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people, the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. If once the people become inattentive to public affairs, you and I in Congress and assemblies, judges and governors shall all become wolves. It seems to be the law of our general nature in spite of individual exceptions. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Many people say that we're not parties to the Constitution and therefore have no rights under it. There's a case called Paddleford, Fay and Company versus Mayor and Alderman of City of Savannah. And this is looks like it's a Georgia case. I'm not sure if it's the Court of Appeals or just a regular court. It says no private person has a right to complain by suit in court on the grounds of a breach to the United States Constitution. For although the Constitution is a compact, he's not a party to it. Well, you have to understand the nature of this case, first of all. It's against Paddleford, Fay and Company versus Mayor and Alderman of the City of Savannah. So it's against one corporation versus another corporation. And so the corporations are not a party to any constitution. Okay, the states are actually, the Constitution is a compact between the states. But who are the states? We, the people, are the states. And so that's why in the preamble, it talks about it. Matter of fact, that's what we have here. This is the preamble for the Constitution for the United States of America. It says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So, again, if you can call yourself posterity, I would just call myself posterity, but actually I do have ancestry that was here prior to the War of Independence. And so I can definitely call myself posterity, but I'll bet there's not many people that can't. There's a lot of people, most people actually, I think, can trace their ancestry back before the War of Independence. And if you can't, well, I've got a YouTube video about Statement of Original Status, and I would suggest you go there and watch it, because that's what that video talks about, is how to prove that you are posterity as found in the preamble. The Articles of Confederation is a compact between the states, and the Constitution is a compact between the states. So who are the states? That's we the people. We the people are the states. We the people aren't the federal government. And so this here is the Definitive Treaty of Peace of 1783. And it says there at the bottom, it's kind of hard to read, Article 1, His Britannic Majesty acknowledges the said United States, in other words, New Hampshire, and he lists all the states, okay? New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, and Providence Plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia to be free, sovereign, independent states, that he treats with them as such, and for himself, his heirs, and successors, relinquishes all claim to the government property and territorial rights of the same and every part thereof. And so, again, so this is actually pretty powerful, because that's where the King of England recognizes the states to be free and independent states. A nation, this is from of the state, this is from the Law of Nations by Vattel, 1758. And the Founding Fathers were reading this thing, okay? They were all reading this, I'll bet you, because they had to create a constitution. So this is section 1 at the very beginning of the book, section 1 of the state and of sovereignty, the Law of Nations, book 1, chapter 1, section 1, by Vattel, 1758. A nation or a state is, as has been said at the beginning of this work, a body politic, or a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by their combined strength. For the very design that induces a number of men to form a society which has its common interests and which is to act in concert, it is necessary that there should be established a public authority to order and direct what is to be done by each in relation to the end of the association. This political authority is the sovereignty, and he or they who are invested with it are the sovereign. So that's all a state is, right there. A nation or state is a body politic or a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by their combined strength. So again, safety from foreign enemies, protection from each other. That's the reason you have a government. That's the only reason. Only legitimate authority of a government is to protect we the people. This is section 2 of the Law of Nations, book 1, chapter 1. Authority of the body politic over its members. It is evident that by the very act of the civil and political association, each citizen subjects himself to the authority of the entire body in everything that relates to the common welfare. The authority over each member, therefore, essentially belongs to the body politic or state, but the exercise of that authority may be placed in different hands according as society may have ordained. So again, in everything that relates to the common welfare. Well, what's the common welfare? The common welfare goes back to why the state was arranged, was set up in the first place. Okay, mutual safety. Okay, that's it. That's it. There's no other reason. And the common welfare could be considered the safety, for our welfare, for our safety. Posse comitatus. That's basically goes to posse comitatus. Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. Posse comitatus, the power or force of the county, the entire population of a county above the age 15, which a sheriff may summon to his assistance in certain cases, as to aid him in keeping the peace and pursuing and arresting felons, etc. Okay, and so that's why we establish ourselves as a nation, is again for safety, and that means criminals, felons, people that are breaching the peace. Again, that's posse comitatus. That's common law. This is Section 3, Law of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 1, Section 3. If the body of a nation keep its own hands, in its own hands, the empire or right to command, it is a popular government. Okay, there's three basic kinds of governments, and it talks about it. If the body of a nation keep in its own hands the empire or the right to command, it is a popular government, a democracy. Okay, if it entrusts it to a certain number of citizens, to a senate, it establishes an aristocratic republic. Finally, if it confide the government to a single person, the state becomes a monarch. And so there's the three kinds. And then it goes on, it says, these three kinds of government may be variously combined and modified. We shall not here enter into the particulars. This subject belongs to the public universal law. For the object of the present work, it is sufficient to establish the general principles necessary for the decision of those disputes that may arise between nations. So, again, three basic kinds of government: a democracy, an aristocratic republic, or a monarchy. And ours is kind of a hybrid to all of that, because there's the federal government is a republic. It's actually, the state governments are too, but there's no representatives, so the state governments could be considered. Well, even the state governments are a republic, and because the state governments even operate under delegated authority, and so next one. This is Section 10. Law of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 1, by Vattel, 1758, Section 10, of states forming a federal republic. Finally, several sovereign and independent states may unite themselves together by a perpetual confederacy without ceasing to be, each individual a perfect state. They will together constitute a federal republic. Their joint deliberations will not impair the sovereignty of each member, though they may, in certain respects, put some restraint on the exercise of it in virtue of voluntary engagements. A person does not cease to be free and independent when he is obliged to fulfill engagements which he has voluntarily contracted. Okay, and again, these are persons or fictitious entities. It's a state. And so this person does not cease to be free and independent when he is obliged to fulfill engagements which he has voluntarily contracted. Such were formerly the cities of Greece, such as are at the present the 7 united provinces of the Netherlands, and such are the members of the Helvetic body. So again, this is a federal republic, and that's basically what the federal constitution does, and the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation, not so much, but the federal constitution definitely delegates certain powers to the federal government, and everything else. And if you read the first 10 amendments, everything that's not delegated to the federal government is reserved to the states or the people, right, under the 10th Amendment. We, the people, are state citizens under common law who have delegated limited authority to the federal government through our representatives. U.S. citizens are subjects of the federal government. Are you one of we, the people, or are you a U.S. citizen? That's what you have to ask yourself. That's really what it comes down to. We, the people, are the state citizens, and we have delegated certain authority to the federal government. Are you one of we the people? Can you prove it? Actually, all you have to do is make an affidavit, and the burden's on them to prove you're not, and it's impossible. So they'll have to accept it. But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government and interfering with their relation to each other. The powers of the government and the rights of the citizens under it are positive and practical regulations plainly written down. The people of the United States have delegated to it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. So again, a republic is not the law of nations. And so this law of nations is used to explain the nature of the government. And then it goes into, it's like 500 pages. So there's a lot of stuff in there. It talks about warfare, all sorts of things. But matter of fact, I think book 4 or book 3, there's 4 books. I think book 3 talks about warfare. But anyways, so there's quite a bit dedicated to warfare. If you want to be one of we the people, you cannot go into international law. Once you go into international law in any matter, you cannot claim you're sovereign ever in that matter. If you do, these so-called judges will see it and see that you do not know what you're talking about. And they may just railroad you and let you deal with it. They may say you're crazy. I've seen them do both those. Or they'll certainly ignore what you're saying, and I've seen them do that too. The Paddleford case is corporate law, the case between corporations and about persons. So it's really nothing to do with we the people. Article 6, Clause 2 of the Federal Constitution. This Constitution and the law of the United States, which shall be made in pursuant thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary. So it's the supreme law of the land. That's Article 6, Clause 2. And that is the most powerful thing. And it doesn't matter what the state constitutions, anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. In other words, it doesn't matter what the state constitutions or state laws say. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. To exercise exclusive legislative jurisdiction or legislation in all cases. These are powers of Congress. In all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state. You know, it's interesting that like, for example, Texas, you know, there's like Fort Hood, which is a big military base, big one, big army base. And there's courthouses and there's all sorts of stuff. But I haven't seen anything that in other words, when it's purchased by the consent of the legislature, okay? So that means there's got to be an act of the legislature ceding that land to the federal government. And there are no cessions in Texas to the federal government. And so there's no place in Texas that would qualify for that. Anyways, and it says this for forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. And so again, there's nothing in Texas, and I'll bet you a lot of other states are the same. Matter of fact, some people here in New Jersey, I'm in New Jersey right now, they said there's a couple swamplands that are delegated to, I think it's the U.S. Forest Service or the U.S. There's some swamplands that the federal government owns. But that's it. That's it. There's nothing else. And so, again, it comes down to to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square. And so that's the argument, okay? You have no business being here. Anytime the government is dealing with you, it's federal, I guarantee you. And so what are you doing here? Where's your authority? Well, let's see if anybody's asking any questions here real quick. (1677) treaty, Chief Black Cloud. I'm wondering what you're talking about there. Maybe that's something I need to look up. I know I listened to, what's his name? He was the First Nations chief, talked about the Dum Diversus. And that was, I'd never heard of that before. And I went and looked it up, and that was like really good stuff. So tell me about that, please. And maybe I need to look it up. 1677 treaty. That's interesting. Anyways, I'm going to continue on here. United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. And so Trump was doing the right thing when he wouldn't intervene in Portland or any of these places unless they asked for it. He was treating them like a true nation that they are supposed to be. The communists were in power there, and so they didn't want to ask him, and so he didn't. Anyways, Republican form of government. Now, a Republican form of government doesn't include a military dictatorship. A military dictatorship falls under international law. Republican form of government doesn't include star chambers. Can you vote in the elections? Only U.S. citizens can vote. That means it's the federal. That's all federal. All state governments are territorial. All the state governments are territorial for U.S. citizens, which means government employees. So that's not a Republican form of government. We, the people, need to convene our common law juries and our common law grand juries, and then we'll have our Republican form of government. And the only reason that it's not here is because we, the people, we've abdicated. It's really what it comes down to, that we, the people, have abdicated. Some of us, at least. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And so that's a beautiful one. That's very few people even mention that. Article 9, an amendment. That is beautiful, because common law rights are unlimited. And that's deny or disparage others retained by the people. We have unlimited common law rights. And that's beautiful. The founders really understood, and they just did everything they could to protect us. But they're all gone now, and it's up to us to take the ball and run with it. Those states shall coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver coin a tender in the payment of debts. That's why they had the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve emits the bills of credit. But then the question is can Congress delegate that authority that they don't have? And there's no lawful money in general circulation. And that's really the argument, is can Congress delegate authority they don't have? They can't emit bills of credit, and so they can't delegate that to which the Federal Reserve knows as a bill of credit. Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. That's Article 4, Section 2. And so, again, that's a very, how would you put it? Every country, it's like that, okay? I'm showing here, it's the same in Canada. But so the point being is that's why I say that the state governments are territorial. Right? All state governments are territorial for U.S. citizens, and the reason is, the way you can tell is, does the state government have to follow federal regulations? Does the city have to follow federal regulations? Of course they do. And so that means that's evidence right there. It's territorial. And the same thing applies in Canada. Owned means subject to the regulations. That's in the Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act. And then the Government Corporation Operation Act of Canada, every corporation for all its purposes is an agent of Her Majesty and Right of Canada, the bitch. It's all color of law. Any of that stuff is color of law. Color means an appearance, a semblance, or a smulcrum as distinguished from that as real, a prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior concealing a lack of reality. It's a fraud. It's a lie. When they start talking that stuff, that means the Roman cult's involved. Okay? They're Satanists, they're liars, they're cheats. Color of law, color of bull. That which is in appearance only and not in reality what it purports to be, hence counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. That means it's Roman cult. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state, is action taken under the color of law. That means CPS, any of these agencies, they're all federal and it's all color of law. And I don't care if it says state of Texas, state of Texas or state of New Jersey on it. If they have to follow federal regulations, and they do, then it's really federal, and that means Congress. The forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy. Okay, so again, if legal tender notes are a privilege, and there's a Supreme Court case, Carlisle versus United States in 1873 said that anyone not privileged is sovereign. Discharging debt with limited liability is a privilege. Legal tender notes, the best they can do is discharge debt with limited liability. They cannot pay debt. All they can do is discharge it. And we talked about that this morning. I don't know if it's going to be covered in this presentation. It might, but we talked about that this morning. Discharging debt with limited liability is a privilege. Article 6, Clause 2, we already went through this. The Constitution and laws of the United States, and which shall be made in pursuance, and all treaties which are made under authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and every state shall be bound thereby. Anything to the law or in the Constitution and laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. In other words, it doesn't matter what these state constitutions or laws say. The federal Constitution is paramount. And then there's felonies associated with it too. This is 18 U.S.C. 242, violating the rights under color of law. Whoever under color of a law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom willfully subjects any inhabitant of any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution and laws of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned or both. Now, it's interesting that it says that. The Articles of Confederation, I was just looking at that recently. I'm not sure if that was in this presentation. I think it was. Or was it? Maybe it was somewhere else that I saw that.
But how does it, if it says this and we're violated under this 18 U.S.C. 242, violating rights under color of law, so they go ahead and do it, who is holding them responsible when they violate our rights?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? That's the reason I sent the nastygram to the judge, right?
Okay.
An inhabitant, remember, that was it. It was in my nastygram this morning. Let me pull up the Word file from that. That's where I saw it. Oh, that's not it. There we go. Yeah. Article 4 of the Articles of Confederation. The free inhabitants of each of these states, paupers, vagabonds, fugitives from justice excepted, shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of free citizens in the several states. So actually, you don't want to be an inhabitant because you're equal to a free citizen in the United States. Free citizen in the several states is the United States. When it talks about in each of the states, see, it says free inhabitants of each of these states, and then it says free citizens in the several states. So you don't want to be an inhabitant, right? Because it's equivalent to a U.S. citizen. That's the mistake.
I don't know if I fully understand that.
Well, at any time, like if you look at the 13th Amendment.
Yeah, but the Articles of Confederation were so you're saying that they were identifying U.S. citizens in the Articles of Confederation?
Says in the real 13th Amendment, okay? If any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without consent of Congress, accept or retain any present, pension, office, or emolument of any kind from any emperor, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of profit under them or either of them. Okay, so under them is the federal government, either of them is the state governments. So if you go to the Articles of Confederation and look at it the same way, it says free inhabitants of each of these states shall be entitled to privileges and immunities of free citizens in the several states. Okay, the several states is the United States. That's federal. Each of these states, free inhabitants, so you don't want to be a free inhabitant because you'll be basically a U.S. citizen. So you'll be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of the free citizens in the several states.
I always thought the several states was a good thing.
Well, each of them, if it said each of them, then it would be a good thing. But in the several states, it's talking about multiple, so that means it's the federal government. Just like in Article 4, Section 2.
Are you showing this on the screen? I don't see it.
No, I'm not. I'm still showing just that one, the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Now the citizen, the word citizen.
Okay, I don't have it in there.
Whenever you mention the word citizen, if it's ever in, I need to know if it's in a capital C or not.
Well, that's hard to say whether it's going to be that way or not. Okay, it's not in there either. Let's go here. Oh, man. Gotta be in here. Talks about the two classes of citizens. It's in Article 4 of the Constitution. I'm not sure which section. I'm just looking for it. It's not in this one. I guess it's not. Okay.
What are you looking for?
There's a section, the Constitution actually talks about two classes of citizens.
Your point about being an inhabitant, negative, is it matches with 18 USC 242, violating rights. It subjects any inhabitant of any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district. So naturally, a possession, say, of it's like it doesn't even apply to a citizen. This 18 USC 242.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to think.
That's what I'm, and you know what, well, it depends on what their definition is, number one, because I looked up in Bouvier's and had sent that out last week or the week before, inhabitant and citizen. And I didn't know that a baby is a citizen. A baby can be a citizen.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't know that.
Well, a baby is not a person. That's the reason they murder them. But they're unborn are not persons. That's why they can murder them. Oh, don't give me that. In Article 4. Don't tell me I'm going to have to go to search. Go to Cornell University or something. In Article 4, it talks about the two classes of citizens.
Of the Constitution.
I ought to put it in this presentation just because I can't find it. So I'll be able to find it in the future. It talks about it. It talks about the two classes of citizens in the Constitution. They've existed from the beginning.
Article 4, Section 2 talks about the citizens of each state.
Right. And so it'd be Article 4, Section 2.
So the citizens of each state,
Yeah.
capital C,
Okay.
shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states.
That's right. Citizens in the several states is federal government. Citizens in each state is state government. That's right.
I can't.
That's right.
I don't see that.
That's two classes of citizens right there.
I don't see it.
Well, I'm surprised.
Because it's a capital C.
I don't. I don't. Sometimes they don't put in that punctuation, and sometimes they do. People. That's a pretty minor. I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying that it's an easy error that people can make. That's the two classes of citizens right there. Citizens in the several states. I mean, if you look in the that 13th Amendment, it talks about under them or either of them. That's the way they talk about it. Now I've seen that in a lot of places. Not in there either.
So this would say the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of U.S. citizens. That's kind of what you're saying. I don't
No.
think it says that.
No.
Yeah, here, read what it says.
I'll look it up. Article 4, Section 2, right? Right. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. It doesn't say, it just says you're entitled to the privileges and immunities of federal citizens. That's all. But that doesn't mean you don't have more on your own. It just means that you get theirs too, if you want them. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. That's the citizens of each state is the state citizens, and the citizens in the several states is the federal citizens.
The way I see that is that all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states, whatever they are in any of the states, it's in each state.
No. Federal citizens don't have. That means that federal citizens don't have near the rights of state citizens. But and under the original Constitution, the way it was, if you read Chevron, I think it was Chevron, there was a case. It said that prior to the 14th Amendment, the U.S. citizens were derivative and dependent upon being a state citizen. Okay, so you had to be state citizen first before you could be a state or federal citizen. And after the 14th Amendment, it made federal citizenship paramount and dominant. And so, they turned it upside down to what the founding fathers wanted or had intended. You see what I'm saying? But the citizens of Article 4, Section 2, I gotta write that down. Clause 1. That's clause 1. That's talking about the two classes of citizens right there. So, inhabitant of any state. So you can't be an inhabitant. So that felony doesn't apply to we the people. Of course, that's the way the martial law. That's what they do. It just says that citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens of the several states, in the several states. So whatever privileges and immunities they have in the federal government, you can have them if you want them. Doesn't mean you have to. You see what I'm saying? Shall be entitled to. But they don't have yours. You see what I'm saying? They don't have the same ones of state citizens.
Okay.
So an inhabitant anyways, it's a felony to violate your rights under the color of law. It's interesting that Congress wrote it like that. I'd like to see what.
Yeah, but it's not. It's only talking about inhabitants,
I know.
not us.
I know.
So I've been quoting it.
I know. So
I
have
gotta
I.
stop.
Yeah.
But what? How do I get?
Well, again, we got to convene our own common law juries.
I agree. That's the problem. 18 USC codes.
And technically, a person, I mean, you could. Technically, we're not persons either. And so then 241, conspiracy to violate rights under color of law. Anyways.
We'll have to look at it.
Yeah. So there's felonies. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's the Ninth Amendment. And we already talked about that. Our rights are unlimited. That's the reason that Ninth Amendment is there, is because that brings in all common law rights, right to travel, all sorts of stuff that's not talked about in the Constitution, and it doesn't deny or disparage others retained by the people. That is so powerful. Every citizen and freeman endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental and natural rights recognized among all free people. And then as a general rule, men have the natural right to do anything which their inclinations may suggest, if it be not evil in itself and no way impairs the rights of others. And now there's my book. And I wrote a book called Trump, A True American Patriot or Not, written by me and Mike Blackwell. Now, Mike he's actually the guy that published it. And so I wrote the book. He asked me to write the book, and it took me about 2 weeks to write the book. And then it took him about 6 months to babysit me to get it to the point that it was ready to publish. And so I wrote it a year ago, last January, and it was July before it got published. So it talks about the deep state and who they are and where they came from and how they got there. For example, there's two national governments. One operates within the Constitution, the other one does not. That's a U.S. Supreme Court case called Downs versus Bidwell says that. And so if you look in the Articles of Confederation, it says that in Article 1 of the Articles of Confederation, it says that, quote, the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America, unquote. And so what happened is in 1861, the Southern states walked out of Congress and they ceased to have a quorum and couldn't conduct any business. And so Lincoln ordered them back under executive authority. And they've been operating under executive authority ever since. And in 1871, they set up a corporation called United States of America. And if you look on a Federal Reserve note, you'll see the United States of America. If you look on a land patent, you'll see the United States of America. Although the one on the Federal Reserve note's all block capital letters. I think that's because that one is probably not the same one that's on the land patent. Anyways, there's a difference between all block capital letters and upper and lower case. Anyways, so, but you'll see the United States of America on Silver Eagles. You'll see it on Air Force One. You'll see it on your passport. You'll see it all over the place. And it's in the Definitive Treaty of Peace of 1783, too. So I'm not sure if that's the unconstitutional corporation or maybe there's more than one. I'm sure there is more than one. These are the two that I can prove. And so anyways, what happened is that corporation went bankrupt in 1933 and it got seized by its creditors. And if you look at the Speaker's podium in the U.S. House of Representatives, you'll see a Roman fasci on each side of the Speaker's podium and a Roman spear that's planted on all conquered nations on the right-hand side of the Speaker's podium. And so it's now owned, Congress is now owned by the Roman cult. That's why Pelosi will get up there and say, we can't read this bill until after we pass it, because she's taking orders from her handlers. I'm just looking at the questions. So if you go on, if you, so what happened is, again, I do aerospace engineering consulting for a living. And so one thing they taught me is to always support everything that I do. And so that book is full of all sorts of court citations, law dictionary definitions, international treaties, all sorts of stuff like that. But there is a little bit of it that's my opinion. And I don't know how many of you have heard of Howard Hughes, but Howard Hughes was a billionaire, and he died back in I guess in the 90s, is when he died. Anyways, yeah, it's probably the 90s, I think, when he died. He was hiding out all the time. He was afraid of being poisoned. He was a billionaire. He was living in the top of one of those gambling casinos in Vegas. He bought the whole casino because he wanted to watch on TV what he wanted to watch, and they wouldn't put it on there. So he bought the casino, and then he could tell them what to put on there.
1976.
Oh, really? 76? Man, that was a year after I got out of high school. Anyways, so my opinion, I don't know for sure, but I think that all of these billionaires, when they get to be billionaires, the New World Order crowd approaches them and says, "You're going to go along with our program, or you're going to turn up dead." And I think that's why he was hiding out all the time. I think the same thing happened to Trump. I think that, matter of fact, there's a crash, an airplane crash, a helicopter crash to be exact. In 1984, there was a helicopter that crashed that had three of Trump's executives on it, and he was supposed to have been on the flight, and he canceled out at the last minute. And so I think that he knows exactly what the threats are, and I do aerospace engineering consulting, and the information I read about that crash is the blades came off of that helicopter. Well, I can tell you, helicopters crash for a lot of reasons, but not for the blades coming off. Okay, and again, I think that it was somebody trying to kill him, and because he didn't want to go along with their program. So, anyways, and if anybody's ever heard of Jerome Corsi, Jerome Corsi is he was actually indicted during the Mueller investigation, and he knows Roger Stone. And he's got a PhD in political science. He's a pretty smart guy. He's written a bunch of books. He's got a YouTube channel and a website. Anyways, there's a YouTube video with him where Jerome Corsi says that in 2015, 5 generals came to see him, and they said that there was a group of generals in the Pentagon that were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but you might want to go talk to Donald Trump first. And so 3 months later, he gets a phone call. They decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. So I guess what my point is I think, I don't know, how many people know that there is a war college in the Pentagon? Well, there is. And if you look at any officer's resume, military officer's resume, there's always something about the war college. And so they study warfare. That's exactly what they should be studying. That's their job. And the most interesting part of warfare is, why did an inferior force defeat a superior force? And so it's called psychological warfare. And so I think, I don't have any proof, but I think that the entire Trump administration, and even it continues to this day, is a giant military psyop. And Trump would throw out a tweet on Twitter. It was like he was fishing, and he would reel them in. And so I think it's all a big psyop, and I think that he is president. I think it's called the Biden show, kind of like the Truman Show. And so I think that's what it is. I think that it's all just a big psyop, and they're building cases against these criminals because they wanna there's going to be um, probably war crimes trials. I'm guessing but so this book is about it. It was published in July. So obviously, actually, I wrote it in January. So there's nothing after that. Maybe a little bit, but probably not much. And if you want to get the book, it's $30 plus shipping. If you buy it online at my website, I'll autograph it for you. You can get it on Amazon. There's probably a lot of places you can get it, but it won't be autographed. If you want to get it on my website, I'll autograph it for you. Anyways, this is the back of the book, and I think that I didn't write this part. This was written by the publisher, but I think they nailed it. It says here, right here, if anybody can see my mouse, says, does Donald Trump want to transfer back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And that's true. Matter of fact, in December, what I was hearing is that those Dominion voting machines were transmitting data to Europe through an Italian satellite that was leased to the Vatican. And so that would be why there's military troops in D.C. That John Claude Beyond Mystic video we were just looking at. Well, earlier on in the video, they talk about D.C. and how someone that John Claude interviews had actually been there and taken pictures of it, and the grass is all overgrown. The White House is not occupied. There's nobody mowing the grass, and it's still got the fences around it. And so I guess what my point is that this is consistent with the fact the reason the troops are there is because it's a military occupation that the United States has seized back the District of Columbia from the Vatican, and that's why the troops are there. And in fact, I've heard, I don't know how true it is, I've heard there's a new capital. They picked a new capital. I've heard there was a meme that I saw where one of the generals was going to see Trump in the Florida White House. And that was like in March when I saw it. And so Penny Kelly talks about Trump running the military behind the scenes, and I think that's exactly what's happening. And I've heard that there's been lots of, kids that have been rescued by them, and he is he's got to. There's a website called Deagle.com that you can't even get at right now because it's been taken down. But it used to say, if anybody's ever been there, I've been there. But it used to say that in 2025, the population of the United States was going to be 100 million people. Well, right now it's 350 million people. So they want to take out 250 million of us. And the military is fully aware of that. If it's real, then they're fully aware of that. I mean, during the whole Obama administration, they wanted to start a civil war. They were calling preppers terrorists and all sorts of stuff like that. And so they obviously wanted to start a civil war, and they want to kill a bunch of us off. And so that's what this whole thing with this vaccination is, I think. That's my opinion. And so that's my political belief, for what that's worth. Anyways, so the military is trying to make this as peaceful as possible, this transition. They don't want the United States to turn into another Bosnia. And so they're trying to make it as peaceful and innocuous as possible. And that's all part of what they're trying to do. But I've also heard that the Navy has been patrolling our coasts, so that no foreign enemies will take advantage of the situation and all the rest of it. So it is a great battle that's upon us. It really is. But if you listen to Penny Kelly, we're winning. So just relax. Don't worry about it. Just let it happen and participate in it if you get an opportunity. But otherwise, just let it happen. You can order the book from Amazon or from my website. I don't particularly like Jeff Bezos, and so I would encourage you to order it from my website. And if you do, it's the same price, and I'll even autograph the book for you. And I know Amazon doesn't autograph them. But if you have something you want that autograph to say, let me know, and I'll be glad to put it on there for you. Do you want to know the origins of the deep state and who's behind it? Well, I think we just talked about that. Want to know why it's called the Trump administration? That's in the book. You want to know what an administration is? That's in the book. You want to know how Trump came to be president? We talked about that. You want to know who owns Congress? We talked about that. You want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? Well, they're enforcing the martial law is what they're doing. Do you want to know how you have become a slave? Well, we kind of talked about that a little bit, but not a lot. Anyways, it's in the book. You want to know what root cause of the War of Independence was? Same thing that's going on now. Do you want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? That's in the book.
Is that going to change with the next president if it's not?
I'll bet it will. I'll bet it will. I'll bet that the president won't go and see the Pope. Yeah, I'll bet it will. So in reality, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. Trump, in my opinion, is such a patriot. But, I just write down the facts in the book, and you can decide for yourself. That's why I say, Trump, a true American patriot or not? I'd say not only yes, but hell yes. The style of this Confederacy shall be the United States of America. We were talking about that. Articles of Confederation, Article 1. And yet, on the passport, there's the passport, United States of America. 2 national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. And that's Downs versus Bidwell, U.S. Supreme Court, 1901. In 1861, the Southern states walked out of Congress, and I think that was all because of Masonic manipulations, and we're going to go into why. But they walked out of Congress, and Congress ceased to have a quorum and could not conduct any business. Under executive authority, Lincoln ordered them to reconvene, and they've been operating under executive authority ever since. In 1871, Congress created a municipal corporation called United States of America. And that's what you see doing all this stuff. It's an unconstitutional corporation. This is Albert Pike in his book Morals and Dogma, page 322. He was a Grand Master of the Freemasons, and he was also a Confederate general. So you can see where the Masonic influence is. And it's well known that the Masonic influence is all over the place. You see it every town. The apocalypse is, matter of fact, I think most of these judges that we're having problems with are Masons. And you need to read that Morals and Dogma, and you can see where I was going to put more stuff in there about it, but I just didn't want to put too much in there. Anyways, the apocalypse is, to those who receive the 19th degree, the apotheosis of the sublime faith, which aspires to God alone and despises all the pomps and works of Lucifer. Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light with all its splendors, intolerable, blind, feeble, sensual, and devilish souls? Doubt it not. For traditions are full of divine revelations and inspirations, and inspiration is not of one age nor one creed. Plato and Philo were inspired. So, anyways, the point is the Masons are that's devil worship, really, is what it is. That's why these. And if you read that more, you'll see it. You'll see it where these judges and stuff are all you know, the Satanists basically. And Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, talks about it. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of law which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. And so civil law, Roman civil law, municipal law are all the same thing. That's what they're saying. And here's a passport. Passport is a written document given to a person or persons by a commander of belligerent forces authorizing him or them to travel unmolested and within the district occupied by his troops. Passports are issued by the State Department or similar office in other countries to diplomatic agents and others entering or traveling in foreign countries, which are the same general character as those issued during war. The latter should, when practicable, have the photograph of the bearer attached, and that's taken from the Rules of Land Warfare, 1914 edition, Passports, Safe Conducts, Safeguards, and Cartels, Chapter 7, Section 4, Article 276, page 100. And there is a Federal Reserve note. And notice, the United States of America, actually, that's not a Federal Reserve note, that's a silver certificate. So it's basically a U.S. Treasury note, I think. I think it is. Yeah, it says right on there, United States Treasury. And so certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America $1 in silver, payable to the bearer on demand. And there's a patent. This is the front page of a land patent. And to all whom these presents may come, greeting. Whereas by the Act of Congress approved July 27, 1866, 14 Stat 292, entitled an act granting lands to aid in the construction of a railroad and telegraph line from the states of Missouri and Arkansas to the Pacific coast, that was granted to the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad Company, its successors, and assigns for the purpose of aiding in the construction of said railroad and telegraph line to the Pacific coast, every alternate section of public land, not mineral, designated by odd numbers to the amount of 20 alternate sections per mile on each side of said road line as said company. So they were given, it's like a checkerboard. Think of it that way, as a checkerboard. And 10 miles on each side. 10 miles on each side of the railroad. So anyways, they were granted all sorts of land. At common law, only gold or silver were legal tender. If you want common law, it requires honest measures. Congress converted citizenship into the opposite of what the founders intended, to enslave everybody. Congress gave governments permission to screen for low intelligence for their code enforcers. Congress granted plausible deniability to their order followers so they can rape, pillage, and murder as much as they like and then claim good faith immunity. Congress mandated fluoride in the drinking water to dumb down the people for their concentration camps. It's exactly what's going on. Congress created the Roman cult Sestake Trust as a mechanism to enslave everybody, collateralize their so-called debt, and sell everybody into slavery. Congress mandated everybody register their births to compel everybody into their slavery system. Congress created administrative law based on fraudulent, fictitious contracts as a mechanism of slavery. Well, you volunteered. Congress created all sorts of prisons to facilitate their military dictatorship and their slavery agenda. Congress gave the president the power to make war without congressional approval as a mechanism of slavery all over the planet. Congress mandating their so-called real ID for their slaves to fabricate evidence of their slaves for their bar members' presumptions. Congress has given pharmaceutical companies immunity for their poisonous vaccines. Congress has authorized naked short selling on Wall Street. That's the seal, that's Jefferson's seal. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. And well said, Jefferson. Jefferson was a true patriot. That seal on it is the Egyptian soldiers dying in the Red Sea or the Dead Sea when it's closing up on them. The children of Israel are on your left-hand side. The pillar of fire there is getting between the children of Israel and the people. Within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away, and the democracy of the United States will take their place. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. Nothing can stand against the Church. And that's Roman Catholic Archbishop James E. Quigley, Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. There you go. There's those two Roman fasci I was saying was next to the speaker's podium in the U.S. House of Representatives. This red text on this one, Roman Conquest, 24th of September, 2015. This red text is kind of hard to read, so I'm going to have it down next to us in the next slide. But we'll read this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. So just so you know which ones we're reading. So that first one is Roman Achaea military staff carried in battle by all Roman commands, planted on all conquered nations. That's right here, pointing at this staff right here. And now this one here, pointing at this guy, that's Joe Biden, by the way. Devout Roman Catholic, honorary degree from Jesuit Scranton University. So that's this one pointing at Joe Biden right here behind the pimp. Well, I meant the Pope. No, he's a pimp. And then this one pointing at these two Roman fasci right here. Roman bundle of rods bound to a weapon symbolizing subservient under the rule of a single man. That's this one pointing at these right here. And then this one pointing at Boehner, who was the Speaker of the House of Representatives at the time. Boehner, Boner, or whatever his name is. Devout Roman Catholic, trained by the Jesuits, installed the first Jesuit chaplain to the house. And this is another picture showing all the same things, a lot clearer with nobody in the picture to get things confused. But you see the two Roman fasci on each side of the speaker's podium and that Roman spear. It's conquered on all nations. Notice the eagle on top. The eagle is a symbol of the Catholic Church. Now, I want to say right now that, and when they say in God we trust, I always wonder, which God is that? I always wonder that. Anyways, and I want to say right now that that's not to say anything bad about people that happen to be Catholic, because, you know, it's friends of mine that are Catholic that have been telling me this for years, and I didn't believe them. And until I just got so much, it just became so obvious. And so the people that are Catholic, you know, I mean, they're just as much victims as the rest of us. It's really a small group. Not all the cardinals are participating in it, you know, so it's really a small group. That's why I call it the Roman cult. And Jesuits certainly, and I don't know how many of them there are. There's probably lots of them, though, because they seem to be everywhere. Anyways, there's a Roman law maxim. Remember that citation. Let's find that again. Right here. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has particularly established for itself, more properly called municipal law. And so then we go down here, a Roman law maxim. Let him who wishes to be deceived be deceived. So then if you think about it, well, that could be used in Roman law, civil law, Roman civil law, or municipal law. Let him who wishes to be deceived be deceived. Thou shalt not curse the deaf, nor put stumbling blocks before the blind. That's these Satanists do, okay? It's all these secret codes. They're liars, they're thieves. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel. And it's all about lies and cheating and stealing and theft. And that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way. When the rights of the least of us are violated, we're all diminished. And they do that every day. They violate people's rights on a routine basis. They are Satanists. Ye are of the father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and the murderers and the whoremongers and the sorcerers, which is pharmaceutical drug pushers, and the idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Their judgment day is coming. But meanwhile, we need to know who they are, and they're liars. If they lie about one thing, then they don't speak the truth. They're Satanists. And that Pelosi, as Speaker of the House of Representatives, says we can't read this bill until after we pass it. Necessity is the plea of every infringement of human freedom. It's the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. And that's William Pitt, speech in the House of Commons, November 18, 1783, and it's still the same today. The action of Congress and the passage of the first Legal Tender Act was placed distinctly upon the ground of the existing imperative need of government, and the Legal Tender Clause was urged and adopted as a war measure. That's Juilliard versus Grievance, Supreme Court. Same case where it talks about the forced loans. And this is international law, Texas Business and Commerce Code, international law. Money means a medium of exchange currently authorized or adopted by a domestic or foreign government. The term includes monetary unit of account established by an intergovernmental organization or by agreement for two or more countries. So that's Texas or the Uniform Commercial Code. It's the same thing. Party, as distinguished from a third party, they like to throw in those little phrases because it confuses people, means a person that has engaged in transaction, made an agreement subject to this title. So again, transaction or agreement subject to this title. Uniform Commercial Code, private international law. Uniform Commercial Code is private international law. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation, take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper, Federal Reserve notes, and securities, checks is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. Governments lose their immunity and descend to the level of private corporations when involved in commercial activity enforcing negotiable instruments, as in fines, penalties, assessments, bails, taxes. The remedy lies in the hands of the state and its municipalities seeking remedy. Causes and necessities. This has been going on from the beginning of time. Okay? The War of Independence. Causes and necessities for taking up arms, 1775. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits, for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. So when you go into international law, then you leave common law behind. There is no common law in international law. And for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter, we saw the misery to which such despotism, that's military dictatorship, would reduce us. So that's why we took up arms. Rebellion against tyrants is obedience to God. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. Well, on both sides. Because, again, you cannot pay a debt with negotiable instruments. In that case, it would have been a negotiable instrument of some sort. And in today's case, it's a Federal Reserve note. The absolute best that you can do with those things is discharge debt with limited liability. You will never pay anything. United States shall guarantee every state in this union a Republican form of government. You cannot have a Republican form of government without lawful money. Article 4, Section 4, Constitution of the United States of America, and the lawful money has to be in general circulation. A republic is not law of nations, but in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government and interfering with their relation to each other. The powers of the government and the rights of the citizens under it are positive, practical regulations plainly written down. The people of the United States have delegated to it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. And U.S. Supreme Court. The purpose of a Republican form of government is to shield we the people from international law. There is a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. These bar member scum lay awake at night dreaming this stuff up. Discharge falls under the law of nations, which is international law. Copies of these documents can be found on my website, linked under my recent YouTube videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forums, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the military script, the fake money, the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. So, does anybody know why I put that last paragraph in there? I put it in there because it takes away the presumption to think that anybody can think that getting Federal Reserve notes is a privilege, because I prefer gold or silver coin. I would rather have lawful money. And many people do actually send me lawful money. But I can accept the fake money. I'd really rather have the lawful money. So there's no privileges here for all you IRS taxing thieves. Section 15, as used in this act, the term United States means government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States and includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. And that's taken from the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, located at 48 Stat 337. When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Federal Reserve notes are commercial paper. Federal Reserve notes are a forced loan. Federal Reserve notes are IOUs. All commercial paper falls into two categories. It's either a promissory note or an IOU. A requirement for a promissory note is a promise to pay. Gold certificates and silver certificates were promissory notes because it says you could go get the gold or silver at the Treasury. You can never, ever, ever pay a debt with a Federal Reserve note. The best you can do is discharge debt with limited liability. It's a Federal Reserve note. It's an IOU, I should say. Check out my other videos, the Bankster Thieves playlist, the Roman Cult playlist, bankrupt so-called corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 7, do-it-yourself, how not to volunteer for the selected service in the draft, martial law is here, do-it-yourself no income tax, do-it-yourself free mail, do-it-yourself kangaroo courts 1 through 19, Canada Border Pigs playlist, bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. The single most important thing to do, in my opinion, if you're having troubles with any government agency, is find out who the bar member that's running the show and bar grieve the bastard. This rule does not interfere with the right of the victorious invader to tax the people or their property, to levy forced loans, to billet soldiers, or to appropriate property, especially houses, lands, boats, or ships, and churches for temporary and military uses. And so that's Libra Code Article 37. Cryptocurrency is not a forced loan. Anything can be used as a means of exchange as long as we agree to it. It's called barter. My contact information, my blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page is deleted. My private group called Sovereignty International is being deleted. I haven't been to Facebook in months, and that's a has-been. You just get censored when you go there anyway, so why go there? And actually, this is my free list private group. Yahoo shut down their groups, so it's a free list. Freelist.org. Go to freelist.org and you can sign up for the group. That's one thing that I cannot sign people up for that group. They don't let me. I also have a private group at Google. They're both called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. Follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Although Twitter has shut down my profile, they won't let me do anything. So I'm thinking about filing a war crimes complaint against them. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. I've got a library. I've got all my YouTube videos are also available on the library. So that's another place you can go to watch my videos. Follow me. I've got a Patreon, Sovereignty International, and I've got a MeWe group. Congress converted citizenship into the opposite of what the founders intended for the purpose of enslaving everybody. Colgate versus Harvey. That's the one I was trying to tell you about. And while the 14th Amendment does not create a national citizenship, it has the effect of making that citizenship paramount and dominant instead of derivative and dependent upon state citizenship, unquote. So what they're saying is that prior to the 14th Amendment, national citizenship was derivative and dependent upon being a state citizen first. And after the 14th Amendment, it became paramount and dominant. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. If you read the Law of Nations, though, an inhabitant is not as good as being a citizen.
Understood. And I'm a capital C citizen.
Yeah, sure. That's fine, because we're the sovereignty. The state citizens, that's the reason, if you think about it, the fact that they have made all the state governments territorial is probably proper, because only U.S. citizens can vote. So the state governments can't possibly be de jure, because the people that are voting aren't de jure. You see what I'm saying? So we, the people, need to step up and convene our common law juries and our grand juries. That's why. You see what I'm saying? And so the only people that are voting are the slaves. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. And there's court cases to say that there's nothing legislatively or judicially that they can do to damage a state citizen's rights. And so we the people, again, it has to be we the people that do it. You see what I'm saying? Common law juries. Citizenship is a political status and may be defined and privilege limited by Congress. Every taxpayer is assessed a trust having sufficient interest in preventing abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. That is a summary from Inri Bolins. Sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions and their history and no longer remember the country they love, the institutions they cherish, and the freedom they hope to preserve. Were born from the throes of armed resistance to tyranny and nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men. Well said. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Well said. An act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, the legal estate to be the Sestake use, that's found in the at 31 Stat 1432. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted, not to themselves, but to the nominal fees to the use of the religious houses. That's the Roman cult, folks. Thus distinguishing between the possession and the use and receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in nominal fee, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. So get a load of this. The Roman cult gets to do it, and then they get to decide whether it was legal or lawful or not. To be bound in conscience to account to the sestique use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And so, it just, don't get me going. You're going to get me going here. That's taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of morte main. That's, in these old law dictionaries. This one here the pages weren't numbered. There's other ones that I found that were, but this one wasn't. I don't know why they didn't. And so the only thing I could do is put it into the definition of morte main. This is where it's codified. 15 U.S.C. Section 44 definitions. A corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts trust or association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members, and has shares of capital stock or capital stock or certificates of interest. And then it lists the same thing, except it doesn't have shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. The second definition would be the sestique trust. Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. That's the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 2. So if you're subject to regulations, then you are property and your territory. Congress shall have power to dispose of and make the United States. If you're subject to regulations, you are property. Military despotism. And if you think about it, since the Southern states walked out of Congress in 1861, and they've been operating under executive authority, operating their criminal corporation, well, think about it. That means that anything done ever since 1861 has been corporate. Everything is corporate. Anyways, forced loans is probably the single most important thing for a military despotism. That's the reason they can't end a military dictatorship, because there's no de jure government there. All those people that walked out of Congress are dead. They have to convene a lawful government. I think the military is working on doing that. I think that what they're going to do is they're going to have, I don't know. I mean, I shudder to think that if they had a constitutional convention, what would happen, because there'd be bar members that would be running it. And so we can't have that. I think the military is going to, I think that they're going to basically, I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do it, although I can tell you that when we go into a foreign country, there's a proceeding that they do. It's called nation building, where they have a provisional government. We in the Republic of Texas did it when we brought our Republic of Texas out of abeyance, which means dormancy. And so they have a provisional government for a period of time, and then during the provisional government, they elect government officers and everything like that, and they'll let that go for an election cycle or two, and then they'll have the regular government. And so, the question is, I suppose they could do it the same way. I suppose they could probably do it the same way. It makes it so the forced loans is the single most important thing for a military despotism. They gotta have lawful money. Now, part of that is, in order to do that, they gotta have a balanced trade. If you have lawful money and you have a trade deficit, then you're going to be shipping all your gold overseas. And so that's why Trump wanted to bring the jobs back. wanted to bring manufacturing back, and so that's still happening, but it needs to happen before they can really bring the government out of abeyance and have lawful money. You have to have lawful money to have a lawful government. It makes it so the courts presume you do not pay a debt. It makes everybody into paupers, and paupers have no rights except what they allow you to have.
What you said you carry a certain amount of silver around not to be a pauper. Why is that, and what's the amount?
Technically, at common law, you're supposed to have $2, but
$2
yeah, I don't. I carry one for sure though. It's right here. See it?
And where's the common law? Yeah.
It's supposed to be $2. I can't remember. I saw it. I think it was like in old statutes prior to the Civil War. I think maybe there was a statute about it or something like that.
Yeah.
But even one is more than anybody else has.
One for each hand.
I guess, eh? Anyways, money, gold is the money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, barter is the money of peasants, debt is the money of slaves. The single most important requirement for a Republican form of government is lawful money. Lawful money is not Federal Reserve notes. Lawful money is not bank notes. Lawful money is not forced loans. Lawful money is not discharged debt. Lawful money is not cryptocurrencies either, quite frankly, because that's not real. Okay, it's digital. Now, in all fairness, cryptocurrency is created by work. Okay, in other words, the mined cryptocurrencies are created by work. Machines have to do work, and so there's power usage, and so it would be a lot closer to lawful money than gold or silver coin, than Federal Reserve notes, but I still don't think it would be real, pure, lawful money, just because of the fact that it's not real, tangible. If the power goes off, it's gone. So, but it would certainly be way better money than Federal Reserve notes, and all of the garbage you see going around nowadays. Lawful money is not first loans. Lawful money is not discharged debts. Lawful money is not international law. Lawful money is not Federal Reserve notes. And so, cryptocurrency wouldn't be in any of that. It wouldn't be anybody's debt. It wouldn't be anybody's loan. So it's certainly a lot closer to lawful money than any of this other garbage. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Therefore, non-resistance to tyrants is obedience to Satan. Well said. Ain't that the truth? Boy, well said. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win, and hopefully they'll bring it back up. I'm going to file a war crimes complaint against them. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit. Don't forget to like this video on YouTube. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. This is the front page of my YouTube channel. The subscribe button has been clicked. The bell has not been clicked. The arrow is pointing at the bell. To click the bell if you want to be notified about the uploads. What is called proclaiming martial law is no law at all, but merely for the sake of public safety in circumstances of great emergency, setting aside all law and acting under military power. That's 8 Attorney General's opinion, February 3rd, 1857. So that's why they have to pass statutes for common law offenses, because there's no law. Once they impose martial law, there's no law. So there's no common law, there's nothing. It's just no law. That's why all statutes are edicts under martial law. That's why all statutes are color of law. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by statutes. They'd be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. And that's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ella to the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. Now, one of the things to remember is we can bring back our law by convening our common law juries and our common law grand juries. And we're not doing that. We need to do that. I can't stress the importance of that. That is our Republican form of government. There is no common law offenses against the United States. Only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command are crimes. Remember, Congress is owned by the Roman cult. It's all Roman law. It's civil law. They lie and they sneak and they steal. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. The legislature may create an offense and in the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. And I'll bet you there's similar sites for New Jersey. Why a military dictatorship? Under a military dictatorship, there's no law, which is why they're required to pass statutes for common law crimes like murder and assault. This creates civil law, which is a democracy. Under a military dictatorship, you have a democracy, and a democracy falls under international law. I have exclusive content available on my website and on Patreon. My website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. My basic subscription level is $29.99 a year for videos only and $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. But I'm not a liar. Well, I'm a lawyer. But I can tell you what I would do and where to find the forms. The only power that the New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception. And my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit. I cannot fight all the battles. And that's why I'm trying to educate people so they can be on point. You have to be on point. And so that's why I'm trying to educate people. Some of my content is an Arlington private information share. I have land deed training, estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration training, criminal complaint training. There's about 3 videos there about that, and there'll probably be more. Lawsuit training, there's 1 video, and there'll be more. Other training requests, depending on if it's something that falls within the scope of what I can do, and if it's something that I haven't done already, and if it's something that shouldn't be public. If it's something that people ask me to do, and it's something that really people need, everybody needs to know, then I'll probably make it public. The stuff that's the exclusive stuff is stuff that you don't necessarily have to be free, and so it's extra. Anyways, I've also got Northeast Private Information Shares videos. All forms, files, and other instructions available for free, linked on my videos and on my website. All exclusive content will be available on my website, and you can buy a subscription there, and it's also on Patreon. Now, my website has a page that's got links to all of my YouTube videos, or almost all of them, organized by content, so you can study it by topic. That way, it's a lot easier to find them. YouTube doesn't necessarily, when you're watching them on YouTube, they won't necessarily be next in the suggested videos. And so, but on my website, almost all my videos are there. Links to them, links to the YouTube videos. They've been telling people for decades that we're in democracy. Do you think that's an accident?
Why would you say it's why are we a democracy when there is still voting and there is still representative government in a sense?
It is. It is. I'll be back.
All right.
First of all, the reason it's a democracy is, what's a democracy? A democracy is mob rule, right? Whoever's got the most numbers. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, but we still have those people, those
20 million and one overpowers 20 million. And it doesn't matter what the law is. 20 million and one overpowers 20 million.
not with the electoral college.
Well, look at what happened with the last election. They stole it.
And that's proof of the democracy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Their republic is for the state citizens. The state citizens have a republic, but that comes down to the rule of law. The republic means rule of law, right? Which means law trumps everything. You have to follow the law. You can't just do anything you want to do. You can do anything you want to do as long as you follow the law. You see what I'm saying? For them, the law is the codes they made. And they can sit there, and if they don't like these codes, well, they'll make some new ones, right? And they do it all the time. They make common law crimes non-crimes, right? And they make stuff that's not a common law crime into a crime. I mean, a perfect example is that felony that we were talking about, where individuals, right, can threaten, coerce, and intimidate you in the free exercise of your rights. But nobody else. Doesn't say anything about anybody else. You see what I'm saying? So that's why it's a democracy. And they tell us every day it's a democracy. Yes, there's representatives. Yes, there has a simulacrum of law, but the only law is what they made up. And if it's not unlawful under their codes, then they can do it. And they do it all the time.
And they leave things out they plan on doing.
Oh, of course. Of course. Taxes is warfare. This is George III, chapter 12, 1778. 2 years after the Declaration of Independence. It's kind of like closing the barn door after the horses get out. Whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising a revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations in North America has been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no shit, Batman, that from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, or assessment, whatever, payable in any of the colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America imposed for the regulation of commerce. Well, and so now what they did, first of all, the 13 colonies rebelled, so that we give them the middle finger and told them to get lost. And now Canada, they went and gave Canada independence. So now it doesn't mean anything in Canada because they do it all the time. They're a bunch of thieves in Canada. Taxes caused the War of Independence. If they can tax you, then you're their slave. You're forced to work for them for nothing. McCullough versus Maryland, 1819, U.S. Supreme Court. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may be pronounced as self-evident. It's obvious. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or its permission. The people don't exist under its authority or its permission. It exists under the authority of the people. So it can't tax the people. You have to get into a contract. There are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by sword and the other is by dead. And this is these judicial court cases when acting to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments. To the present day, the judge of municipal court is acting as an administrative officer, not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating and enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially. They're bought and paid for at clerks so they're not judges, but merely acts as an agent involved only in a ministerial and not in a discretionary capacity. It is the accepted rule, not only in the state courts, but in the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes. For a ministerial court, for an agency, they're bought and paid for. That's why you will never get justice at the hands of these bail priests. They always act under a statute. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature or otherwise, act as mere clerks of the involved agency. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Where there's no jurisdiction, there's no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Sea. Judge wears a military uniform. Judge sits there and plays stupid. If you fail to follow some obscure rule or procedure, they sell you into slavery. Everything they do is a fraud and a nullity. Oh, look, there's a bail priest. And really, in any of these courts, the prosecutor is the guy you go after. You file bar grievances against that bastard. And you file bar grievances against him too. Now, you could probably file judicial complaints against him, and by all means do that. But file bar grievances, because he can't work there unless he's a bar member. They're all bar members. File bar grievances. Judge works for the state. Prosecutor works for the state. Police or witness works for the state. The vast majority of the disputes that the police initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the police all represent the same party. And since no corpus delicti, mens rea, or acts reus can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. They're thieves. It's civil law. They're lying, cheating, stealing. Don't get me going. But in fact, in law, such statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in the states under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and the so-called 14th Amendment. And that is a summary from United States versus United Mine Workers, 1947. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude as sect as punishment for crime. So they make up their fictitious crimes, and then they hold their show trial and sell you into slavery. It's all a commercial transaction, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. And so, remember, United States, that's the federal government, and it says, even in there, it says, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. That means federal territories. And so, Section 1 of the 13th Amendment only applies in federal territories. He, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights except those which the law and its humanity affords him. He is for the time being a slave of the state. So again, 13th Amendment only applies in federal territories. And under that Downs versus Bidwell case, it talked about it there. It says the territories are states under international law. That's why they call the territory states. And so if you look in Title VI, United States Code.
Right, I should start calling it the territory of New Jersey when I speak about it.
That'd probably be a good idea.
That way it'll educate.
Domestic security, let's go there and look at the definitions. Homeland Security Organization. Definitions 101. State, Section 17. You see this all over the place. This is Title 6, United States Code, Section 101, Paragraph 17. The term state means any state of the United States, and then comma, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, and any possession of the United States. Okay, so what it's doing is it's saying the term state means any state of the United States, and then it's listing those states. But people look at that and they think, oh, that means Texas too. You see what I'm saying? And that's in Title 6. In all of them, it'll have something like that. Guaranteed. Now some of them, like I think the let's see. Some of them actually have lawful definitions. Let's look at Title 10. Oh no, we don't want to look there. Highways. Because in the Constitution, all over, in all those old statutes, it talked about roads, post roads, and stuff like that, right? So let's look at there. State. And here,
What are you reading from?
this is Title 23, United States Code, Section 101, which is the definition section. And then you go to paragraph 26. The term state means any of the 50 states, the District of Columbia or Puerto Rico. So see, they know how to do it right if they want to include all 50 states. Now, so then 6, which is immigration, right? Or Homeland Security.
The definition of state could mean, I mean, it has 100 different definitions depending on.
Well, it's again under international law, the territory or states. 6 is domestic security. Okay, so that means Homeland Security. They don't have jurisdiction in Texas or New Jersey or any of those 50 states. They only have jurisdiction in Guam, American Samoa, Puerto Rico, the territories, and the District of Columbia. They got no business being anywhere else. And so again, that's domestic security. And I'll bet you customs will probably read the same way.
How is it that we, as the people, can have a de jure government when the martial law rule is here? It would be like the Nazis coming into France, and France says, "No, we're here as the people."
Well, again, it's because of all the brain dead idiots.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm asking, even if we had, I mean,
we have to convene our common law juries and our grand juries.
right.
That's really how we do it. That's the only way we can do it. That's our de jure government. That's our Republican form of government.
and you have, does Texas, common law Texas currently have teeth when you have these grand juries?
Well, again, here, let me show you. This is what I use. I used it, remember, when I was going through.
Can they see it?
No. I moved that over here because the window was washing me out when I was showing me, okay? But anyways, this is, they can't see it. I have a YouTube video about it, protected person under international law.
Okay. How
Okay.
recent?
Huh?
How recent?
Well,
I'm just asking, a year?
I don't
or
know.
two?
It's been within the last few months.
That's all I'm asking, just so we know where to look.
I can tell you here pretty quick.
Should I get a blanket for that window in the morning?
No, it's too late. Maybe for tomorrow. Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. But over here's okay. There it is. Yeah. Last private information share up here, I did it. Protected person under international law. We talked about it. It's 3 hours. Anyways, talks about, first of all, we have a Supreme Court of Texas case. It is case number 95-1002 in re the people of the Republic of Texas, by and through Richard L. McLaren, their legal diplomatic representative as acting ambassador and consul general and legal affairs officer for the Territorial Land District of Tal versus, and I don't know who it was. Dear counsel, today the Supreme Court of Texas dismissed the above numbered and style proceeding for want of jurisdiction.
So someone was attempting to do what?
They were trying to bring an action, probably to get against maybe the state of Texas. I'm not sure. The letter is to the Honorable Dan Morales, Attorney General for Texas, in Austin, and it was also sent to. Who else was it sent to? I'm not sure who else was it sent
So
to.
was that a common law judgment that then that person who was affected was trying to get it overturned by the Supreme Court?
I don't know. I have no idea.
And it's in 95. I mean,
It's in 95. They probably brought an action against the state of Texas to, I don't know. I'd have to find out. I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm asking
I slept a couple times since then.
today-
I wasn't even involved in the Republic of Texas then.
today's grand jury.
Right. Today's grand juries, what you're going to have to do is hold a trial, and if you have a conviction, you can bring a member. There's the case of the one Supreme Court with the Republic of Texas that we convicted the WFAA TV, and I can print that off if you want to look at it. And they went, and the TV station brought it into the de facto courts, and the de facto courts refused to overturn it.
That's the one I remembered you talking about.
That's
Yes.
right.
So
That's
that
right.
was relatively recent, the last 10
Well,
years.
95.
Oh, that was in 95.
Yeah.
So I'm asking, today's common law situations on Texas, what is happening? Because you have them.
We're trying to get enough people to participate, number one,
So you're still,
and we're having the same problem everywhere else is
Really?
having.
Okay, I thought
but-
Texas
but-
was-
But what you have to do is you have to convene your common law courts and grand juries and put them on trial and then bring them into a foreign territory, into a foreign court as a foreign judgment. That's all you can do. Bring it into as a foreign judgment.
you would tell the foreign court, this is what we found. The de jure courts found this.
That's right.
And now they have.
They will say, I can tell you right now, they'll say, we don't recognize you, but they do have to accept foreign judgments. And it is a foreign judgment. There's,
foreign to them.
yes, it's foreign to them. There's under 18 USC, Section 11, foreign government defined. Foreign government, as used in this title, includes any government faction or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States. So we don't need their recognition.
Gotcha. All right.
And this case here is the reason they dismissed it, because they didn't recognize us. See what I'm saying? You don't need their recognition. And then under Title 18, Section 112, there's sections where you can bring up the issue of under Title 18, Section 112, protection of foreign officials, official guests, and internationally protected persons. And whoever assaults, strikes, wounds, imprisons, offers violence to any foreign official, official guest, or internationally protected person. or makes any other violent attack upon the person or liberty of such person, or if likely to endanger his person or liberty, makes a violent attack upon his official premises, private accommodation, or means of transportation, or attempts to commit any of the foregoing, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. And so it's a felony. And so then it goes through, and once you find out the definition of, you got to do a little bit more research of who a protected person under international law is. And like, for example, I am, because I was a consul, okay, consul general. Mm-hmm. And so, no, I was a charge d'affaires is what I was, which means I was an ambassador. And so I've got a commission showing that I was appointed to be a charge d'affaires. And so that would make me a protected person under international law. Mm-hmm. Not everybody is a protected person, but, you know, I'm also a senator right now, so I would be a protected person for that too. And so, because I'm in the Senate. But
right, I hear you.
So that's why I got my card, which is, you know, Department of State.
So, but that didn't protect you when a law enforcement officer didn't recognize.
Well, yes, you're right, and that's why I got to break it off in their ass. So there's remedies. Again, we have to, and once enough people start doing it, they're going to run away and hide, right, because they don't have, their authority comes from us, is where it really comes from. Right. But again, you got to educate them. You know, you got to force the issue. You got to get their you know, bail priests to agree, and that may not be easy, at least initially. It might take a Supreme Court or something.
Right.
Anyways, so anyways, moving on. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. And that's what needs to happen. And I think Trump is trying to restore the republic. And so it's good that he is. But we need to be doing our part on our end too, because he's only one guy. Yeah. And you saw what they did with him. And so it's not over as far as he's concerned. We still have a lot of good people in the military that know what needs to be done, and so that's good. But there's a lot of brain dead idiots out there, so we still need to try and educate them. Mark Passio, a former Satanist priest, says 70 to 90% of Americans are practicing Satanists. This is Article 6, and we've already talked about this, but this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, shall be the supreme law of the land. I think I've read it twice already. We can have a benevolent dictator or a tyrant dictator. Obama was a textbook tyrant. Pelosi gets up and says, we can't read this bill until after we approve it. Lindsey Williams is a guy that for years, he started out working for the elite. He's a Baptist preacher is what he is. He went to the Alaska pipeline in the 70s, I guess, is when they were building the Alaska oil pipeline, and to preach to the people that are working on the pipeline. And the people that ran the pipeline liked it so much, like what he's doing, that they invited him to their board meetings, and they give him some accommodations to live, in their camp. And he was invited to their board meetings, and he got to know a bunch of them, and he kept in touch with them. And they were people, the elite. He called them the elite, and they would tell him what they're going to do, and then it would happen. And he's been saying for years he would make a video and tell people what's going to happen, and it would happen. And when Trump got elected, he said they told him that God had intervened and their plan was on hold until Trump was out of office. That's why they hate his guts so bad. That's why I like him. They hate his guts. That means he's okay with me. I mean, if there's any reason why I like him, it's because they hate his guts so bad. They're doing everything they can to destroy him. I love the guy, and it's because they hate his guts. The people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who would pervert the Constitution. Tyranny is defined as that which is legal for the government, but illegal for the citizenry. A republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. What country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. Absolutely. That's when push comes to shove. That's what it's going to take. We'll see. The Constitution is not a document for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government. We have governor tyrants, we have Congress tyrants, we have county commissioner tyrants, we have city tyrants, we have county sheriff tyrants, we have judicial tyrants. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. It's time to rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Let's give them the finger. We need to get unplugged. All executive orders or regulations for property of the government and therefore a color of law. The Constitution is the absolute best protection that we can have. It's all color of law. Color of law is something that looks like law but isn't. It's a lie. It's a felony to violate your rights under the color of law. They can violate your rights as long as they can claim good faith. Tell them it's a felony and have witnesses. Build a case against them. America needs God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Exodus 20:3. The New World Order will require you to worship the government. That's going on in China right now with the Falun Gong, that they are doing their organ harvesting programs. The reason they're going after the Falun Gong is because they refuse to accept the president of China as God. They refuse to do that. That's the reason they're killing them. That's coming here if we don't put a stop to it. Under the New World Order, you renounce any other God except government or they'll try to kill you. In China, they're persecuting Christians, Falun Gong, and anyone that fails to worship the government. It's well known that they're harvesting the organs of the Falun Gong. The greatest tyrannies are always perpetrated in the noblest causes. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to protect themselves against tyranny and government. Isn't it interesting that since Biden, under the Biden show, we've been starting to get all these false flags? Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. It's time to give them the finger. It's the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government. If you claim you're not a party to the Constitution, you're saying you have no rights. The only other rights are under the United Nations. The United Nations has not acceded to many, or the United States has not acceded to many United Nations agreements. There's an international criminal court, and the United States hasn't acceded to that. This partial agreement to the Geneva Conventions about war crimes and crimes against humanity. All judges' oath of office are to the Constitution, and the Constitution provides by far the best protections. And so you got to remind these judges, and you got to go after them. File judicial complaints, file bar complaints. Go over their head. There's lots of ways of doing it. That's the way to the Constitution is by far the best protection that anybody can have. The Founding Fathers knew what the threats were. And the Constitution is quite ingenious, quite frankly. It's brilliant. I think it was inspired by God, quite frankly. And So I guess we'll find out. I think it was.
Why do you say the United Nations has not acceded to many United Nations agreements?
No, I said United States.
Excuse me.
People that say that we're not parties to the Constitution are basically saying that we aren't entitled to constitutional protections. That's essentially what they're saying, okay, with this Paddleford court case. And so the only other protections you get are under the United Nations. And the United States hasn't agreed to a lot of these United Nations treaties, and the United Nations protections are second-class protections. They're not near as good as what's provided under the Constitution. The Constitution's way better. So these people that are basically Jesuits, they're trolls. They're trying to tell us that we don't have any rights. That's what essentially they're telling us. And they're using a case that's involving corporations. Yeah, don't get me going. You're going to get me going. Anyways, it is now 4:45. That's the end of this presentation. We're done today. I appreciate everybody watching. Does anybody have any questions or any input that they want to make? Want. File bar grievances and judicial complaints against them. I'll put my there's my email address. If anybody wants to contact me. The Constitution is by far the best protection. They take an oath to support the That's the reason I left that group. I'm not interested in participating in that. Thank you very much. I'm glad you liked it. I think we're going to sign out now. So this chat, I'm not sure how long this chat stays up there after I sign out of the video. But you can contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com if you have any questions. But the best thing to do is watch my other videos. I've got over 400 videos available. So, that's the best thing to do. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. See ya.